In today's video, I'll be reviewing Arizona Sunshine 2 on all formats on varying difficulties. I'm pleased to report this, for me, is a very good game, and it's even better in co-op. And I'm pleased to add, it's a worthy successor to the original. But while the developers are definitely invested in a lot of ways to make this sequel not only look like a sequel, but play like one, I can't help but feel it's also held back by the previous game and the name Arizona Sunshine. Now, before I dig into platform specifics, I want to talk about the game itself, because it's a near replica experience regardless of the platform you choose to play on, and that is a very impressive achievement. Vertigo games have only left me with a few platform specific gripes, which I will get to soon. Arizona Sunshine 2 is a true successor to the original in almost every way. The graphics, the on-screen zombie count, the variety of zombies, the music, the length of the game spanning over 19 chapters, the character dialogue, hell, even the story means something to me this time, and I think most of that is due to your new friend, Buddy. And I'm pleased to say it does take some risks to do something new, like the awesome train level. This is by far one of my favourites, and I'm sure it will be yours when you get to play the game yourself. We now also have Buddy, who is a absolutely lovable companion, and he is really handy, not just for fetching zombie arms and playing with tennis balls. He can also take on zombies at the press of a button, store weapons for you, pick up items to help you access normally inaccessible areas, and even fights for you when you're outnumbered or struggling to reload. Now, my issue is the game feels like it pulls itself back from being a true zombie survival game. I know the original Arizona Sunshine wasn't trying to be a serious game, but by opting to stay faithful to the original, it means the sequel also falls short of truly achieving something special. And here is my examples of what I'm trying to say. There is no stats aside from health. Buddy is never in danger, unfortunately. He never needs medical attention, nor does he need food for health. You as a player just don't really fear dying. It's not scary, for example, to get bitten or eaten. Do you remember the moment you died in The Last of Us? I remember wincing most of the time at that animation, and I didn't want to die. In Arizona, when you do die, your body just sort of half falls in the floor, and you watch the zombies just turn stupid while Buddy either just stands there or he'll keep attacking. It would have been so cool if the zombies have all suddenly piled on top of you and kept ripping at your flesh. Or they suddenly all turned on Buddy, making it feel like you've let him down and you need to try harder. Instead, the game keeps everything quite light-hearted. I think it's a bit of a shame, because in a lot of ways it's very close to being a lot more. You now have zombies with infection growth on different parts of the body that acts like armour, and if a zombie's head is covered in it, it can take 3 to 5 headshots depending on the gun to make their head blow up.
Peace out, Fritz!
And while I'm talking about weapons, all the guns do feel great to shoot, and headshots never get boring. There's a real emphasis on the squish and the exploding sound of a bullet hitting a zombie's skull, and luckily that is always satisfying. But unfortunately the guns aren't always fun to reload, especially on quest. For example, when you try to flick to reload the revolver, it can be very stubborn and really hard to get the cylinder to go back into the gun. And that's the same as the grenade launcher, and the game can get confused whether you're trying to hold the gun again or trying to snap it back in half to reload the weapon. And when you try to do it naturally yourself with a flick of the wrist, it simply is like a 50-50 whether it's going to actually work. Also, while you're cocking some other guns, you can end up with the gun actually pointing at your own head because the game gets confused. Whether you're trying to grab the front of the gun to add stability or you're trying to reload it. And that gets worse with the more on-screen action that is happening. This game has a lot of moments which could make it a truly excellent game. A real zombie survival experience. But instead, due to some choices that I laid out earlier, it can feel like a run and gun game that can get a little thin. But you can, however, make this a lot harder from the get-go by choosing the hardest difficulty. And man, does it get hard at certain points, and it really does increase the playtime. For example, my full playthrough on the quest version on the hardest difficulty was around 6 hours. But if you opt to play the game in normal, I reckon you can get through this in at least 3 or 4. But also in certain areas, if it's in a part where there's going to be more zombies, for example, the loading times can take a massive hit. I was once on a loading screen for around 2 minutes on the quest, and that alone can make you consider dropping down the difficulty just to not have to look at that load bar for that long. But if you want a tough Arizona Sunshine 2 experience and not run and gun and simply headshot everything, I would go for the harder difficulties. Regardless of all that though, I really did enjoy playing this game. And that's quite a special thing to say, especially since the zombie thing has been done so many times. I always look forward to playing it on all platforms for this review. And with that being said, let's dive into some platform specifics. The Quest version is obviously the version with the most downgraded graphics, but for a standalone device, I am overly impressed with what they have achieved. The sheer amount of zombies that can be seen on screen is pretty unbelievable at times, and the game looks very impressive. In fact, there's one level where there's a ton of smoke all around you, and I actually think it looks better on Quest than both PSVR2 and PCVR. The game also feels great to play aside from the tough reloading mechanics I mentioned earlier, and sometimes glitches like melee weapons just going through zombies can happen. It is rare, but it does happen. Graphically, things like reflections, Buddy having no fur, zombies' eyes are flat textures, and it can look a lot less bloody than both the other versions, but the Quest is brilliant for me personally. There is also some Quest 3 enhancements coming at a later date, and also cross-platform support at launch. So the Quest version definitely gets a buy recommendation from me. With PlayStation VR2 and PCVR, I'm actually putting this together because they are in fact very similar and also share the same issues. And don't get it twisted, the PCVR and PSVR2 versions are both visually impressive. The textures, the blood, the zombie details, everything on this front are pretty much the same and impressive. The PC has some extra effects like pools of fire and zombies exploding, I think with more detail. And if you're simply here to find out which platform you should buy this game on, either PSVR2 or PCVR, PCVR is the way to go. PSVR2 benefits from vibrant colours, which you would expect from the OLED panel, and the game can look really great. There is, however, that level I mentioned earlier with the smoke, and this awful fogginess is just really bad on PSVR and PC. It just makes the game look far too washed out. And both platforms share the same bugs, such as textures on floors disappearing, zombies getting stuck indoors and making the doors act very strange, and there's two extra things that make PSVR2 worse than PCVR, and that is multiple crashes, and this could be because it's a review build, but there's also the reprojection, which is obviously not an issue on PC. In my first hands-on I showed you one level, and in that short burst, the reprojection didn't really bother me, but for some reason by the time I got around to playing at least an hour of the game, it can become really bothersome and a little uncomfortable to play. And I am someone who previously could hold their hand up and say reprojection doesn't bother me, but for this game it definitely got to me and caused me to take some breaks. It really is a shame this game isn't running at native 90Hz on PSVR2 because it's really beautiful otherwise. I hope the devs get around to fixing the issues I outlined, but the importance of 90Hz native support for PSVR2 is definitely top of the list. All this aside, I would still give this a buy recommendations on all platforms, but mostly because I feel a lot of these issues can be solved with patches, and as I said, I really do enjoy the game. If you're looking for a zombie shooter that isn't deep and it's all about the action, Arizona Sunshine 2 is a great game. If however you're looking for something deep and pretty memorable, I'm not sure this will tick the box for everyone. And also, before I forget, there is also the return of the Horde mode where 4 players will go against waves and waves of enemies. But unfortunately I didn't get to test that for this review. I hope this helps you make a decision, and if it did, please leave a like and subscribe for more VR content, and thank you very much for watching.
What a good dog!